as you know, the interim ceasefire MOU that didn't ceasefire is officially over. It's collapsed. The US via CENTCOM is conducting repeated precision strikes on regime remnant military targets in direct response to regime remnant attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, a couple other things. The Mullah regime is trying to retaliate asymmetrically with missile and drone strikes at U.S. bases, and our Gulf state allies are Israeli. Pretty much they're lashing out at anybody they can hit. And you have continued harassment of shipping. Our IDF allies is largely to the, as far as open intelligence sources say, is focused more on dealing with Hezbollah in Lebanon, which they should. And so where do we go, like in regards to specific actions? So the status of U.S. forces in the Persian Gulf are highly active and an elevated alert, obviously. The strikes are being conducted from regional air, naval, and land assets, bases in Bahrain, Qatar, etc. U.S. bases across Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Jordan have faced Iranian missile and drone strikes and attacks. Well, not strikes, attacks. Sirens have been reported. There's been limited or no casualty or damage per those open intelligence reports. Force projection is heightened and being used. The U.S. naval assets are monitoring, patrolling the Strait of Hormuz as part of efforts of protecting shipping while we are finishing off the regime remnants capabilities. No U.S. losses as per my assessment, as when I did this assessment. U.S. military actions and strikes in the past 24 hours. So CENTCOM has conducted another major round of strikes on the regime remnants. Approximately 90 targets have been struck, building on the 80 plus that were struck previously. So what are their focuses? Air defense systems, coastal surveillance and radar sites, missile and drone storage launch sites, naval capabilities of the IRGC fast attack craft, military logistics infrastructure along Iran's southern coastline. So, you talked about Bandar Abbas, Sharik, Kanarak, and Chabahar. Forgive me if I mispronounce it. Reports of cruise missile strikes in northern Iran targeting railway bridges. So the objective seems to be pretty clear: to degrade the regime remnants' ability to threaten freedom of navigation and attack commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. We're using precision munitions. President Trump has framed it as responding to attacking ships by hitting much harder. Very much going to be disproportional. Our Israeli allies' actions and strikes in the past 24 hours, there's no major new Israeli strikes as per when I did the assessment on the mainland of Iran against regime remnants or core regime targets. They're focusing on their lane, and understandably so, on dealing with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon by targeting cells and operatives in the areas like Bet Jabil and Akita sectors, raids and neutralization of threats throughout those areas. Israeli officials have indicated that the regime is refraining from direct attacks on Israel, at least when I did this assessment, to avoid drawing Israel fully into the current, U.S. regime remnant flare-up. I get a feel maybe, though, they're going to get a piece of that. So are Gulf state allies. I'm getting that feel, too. So the regime remnants, what have they done? Missile and drone attacks against U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. IRGC claimed targeting 85 sites, possible involvement in Jordan, Iraq, Qatar alerts. They continue projectile attacks on commercial shipping. Air defenses are activated all throughout southern Iran right before we took them out and then pasted them with red, white, blue dick bombs of unbelievability. They're trying to assert, asymmetric control of the strait, even though that's why we're obliterating all that stuff. As far as Hezbollah, there's very low level stuff as of when I did this assessment. Things can change on a moment. Commercial shipping, commercial aircraft in the region. This is a shout out to Kat. So obviously commercial shipping has seen a high level of disruption and risk because the IRGC remnants keep doing stupid shit. Traffic was reduced from pre-war norms of 120 to 140 crossings a day to far below normal with severe risk advisories. Regime remnants is trying to assert control, and that's why we're eliminating that attempt at control vis-a-vis their fast attack boats, mosquito fleets, all that shit. Commercial aircraft in the region is disruptive. It's disrupted. That said, still maintaining operation with some caution. It's not a total regional airspace shutdown. That said, the EASA and others have advised avoiding Iran, Iraq, and Lebanese airspace for, at least through August 31st due to military risk. That's probably because of our aircraft doing what they're doing and regime remnants, Duke's canoes trying to leverage things like man-pad missiles to target commercial aircraft, which is one of the concerns we've had since 2002. President Trump's statement. So very much as far as he's concerned, it's over. Wasted time dealing with. They're liars, they're scum, they're sick people. Obviously, this is the manifestation of that conclusion. I very much appreciate both President Trump's statement and the manifestation. On the response, Iran hit a couple of ships, so we hit them much harder, and we're probably going to hit them a lot harder again at the NATO summit. The regime has very little left. Those are statements we kind of went over yesterday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu very much remain aligned despite some tactical differences in where we're tactically focusing. Emphasis on coordinating with President Trump and the U.S. military because they're our allies, and obviously we're trying to take down this huge octopus by focusing on different elements of its dying body. They're focusing on a tentacle. We're starting to focus more on the head. Israel will strike Iran if directly attacked, as that's what U.S. requests support. Those conditions, as when I did this assessment, had not manifested themselves. I'm sure Armin is going to, add some spice to that. As far as regime statements or regime remnant statements, of course, they're going to claim that they have successful strikes on U.S. sites in Bahrain and Kuwait, and they will crush everything. I mean, these people, I just can't wait till we just get rid of these fucking assholes. I mean, they're so annoying and so irritating, and they're like people who it's like somebody who waddles up, right? They got like two broken legs, two broken arms, their nose is broken, all their teeth is knocked out, two black eyes, and they're like, yeah, you should see the other guy. They really won that fight. Well, unless the other guy's dead, you got your ass kicked, and we're going to finish kicking your ass. So that's kind of where things sit right about now. As to the best of my knowledge, there's also other activities throughout broader co-aligned geographic regions of strategic importance. Things are, heating up between Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state and the Chinese and Ukrainian defense forces, with hammering Kyiv and Ukraine firing back. We're very much actively assisting that. It seems like everybody kind of knows who's on what team and what those lines are. Chi-coms are getting ready to do stupid shit in Taiwan. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Quick, fast, dirty, 30,000 foot overview. I'll be willing to take any questions if you want.
I think Danny is here. Danny?
Yes, we have some twos in the chat. First from Monkey.
Yes, I saw a report coming from open source intel talking about this being okay, so let me get into the specifics. What the report says is that the reports of explosion across Iran, this is 23 minutes ago. Open source intel said, despite reports of explosions across Iran, a senior U.S. official says the U.S. military is not conducting the strikes on Iran. Who is? And they're also talking about this may be like, Persian Gulf partners getting in on the action, trying to get in on this, right? So this is very surprising to me. And I thought it was interesting. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Are we watching more of the joint stuff? I'd like to hear what Jeffrey has to say on this.
Wait, so I saw the same thing. I was gonna wait. Who are you saying it is? Because this is what I saw from Iran International, saying following reports of an explosion heard in areas in southern Iran, a U.S. official told CNN the U.S. military is not currently carrying out any attacks. So what did you say, Monkey? You said who is it based on what you were reading?
Well, they don't say. They're just asking. They're like, wait a minute. If it's not us, who is doing this? And I if anyone is good, I remember, I think it was UAE wanted to get in on this, maybe Saudi Arabia. But if anybody knows what partners are ready to use our intel to go in, I think Jeff might have something on this, because it would still be us directing. They're not going to go in alone. So I would. That's the question I have for Jeff.
Okay.
I think what you're probably going to see, without saying anything specific there, is given the fact that everybody kind of knows where everybody's sitting, right? So you have the autocratic bloc versus the US led Western alliance, and all those different areas are active, that proxy elements or peripheral elements of a lot of those two different blocks are being activated. I mean, there's a reason President Trump said, yeah, we might send some more Patriot interceptors to Kyiv. We're also giving Ukraine the ability and license to produce Patriot 3s. Well, there's a reason for that, right? Because we know that there's fucking activity in all the areas that constitute hot spots or trigger points for an escalatory war. And, we are, the adversaries have coordinated their efforts in such a manner to stress the critical munition stockpile. I mean, that kind of coordination plays out other ways without saying anything too specific for obvious reasons, right?
You're right.
Oh, real quickly, I wanted to add to this. You guys mentioned this, you, Armin and Monkey, you mentioned this on your show. It's pretty clear that the Pakistani government or elements out of Pakistan are trying to run diplomatic interference for the Mullah regime remnants, because Pakistan and the Mullah regime remnants are very much proxies, or at least in some ways aligned with the Chinese Communist Party. So, there's that kind of, there's, why did I kind of go and touch base on that? That kind of peripheral activation is not just constrained to hard or economic Latin power. It's also being played out in soft power, right? Because the CCP wants to save the regime remnants because they want their dirty, heavy, sour crude oil for the teapot foundries and shit.
All right. The next response is from Faithful Disciple.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just going to chime in here just about the overall big picture and just kind of what I see the U.S. is doing. I think that's what we're talking about here, right? So I've kind of got this kind of mapped out here in a few different pieces just to keep myself on track. So I think overall, I'm just kind of thinking through this. It's important to kind of understand something I mentioned before, like in a previous discussion, what is just how difficult it is for many of our politicians and really for many of us here in the West to try to wrap our heads around some of the ways that the Middle East is thinking, okay? And just in the way that the IRGC really thinks. It's so backwards from a lot of how kind of we think here in the West. So Trump, let's take Trump, okay? So what's really important to kind of understand from him, and really my father-in-law is really a lot of the same way. He's an old school business guy. So here in America, you saw a lot of these kind of things, a lot of these values in his show, like The Apprentice, okay? You hear in a lot of the rhetoric of some of these guys, like, your word is your bond. They'll say things like that. A man is only as good as his word, okay? And they really live by these values, all right? And so for him, if, you make a deal, we shake our hands on it, it's a deal, we're good, right? And so if you break your deal, like you do there with the IRGC, with like these guys, that, you are scum, you're a liar. Some of the worst things you could actually do would be to do that, to go back on that, right? And so I really honestly think that President Trump really truly is kind of done. And I think you hear that in his rhetoric. You heard that from him, okay? And, we really kind of think back to Trump's really first term. How many of the guys that, he's quote unquote fired from term one, does he even really truly have a relationship with? The answer is that people really know, none, not really any. So if you are gone from in Trump's book, you're kind of gone, okay? And so, and he even said this, I remember he even said this, he says, you know what, my negotiators, if they want to talk with him, that's fine, we're done talking. So, I mean, that's an important thing to kind of understand. kind of wanted to transition to what I think he's really kind of doing is that, Armin, you and Ali had talked about this, I think, last week in your analysis, and you're looking at the USS Boxer that was heading to the region. And I was looking at all of the movement of our troops kind of heading to the region there. And honestly, I think that really the US is kind of geared up for that. This is the final strike. They're looking to do that. I think ideally what they would love to do would be to ideally sit things out until the midterms. That would be great. However, it's pretty clear that the Vahidi group or whoever else is kind of with them is going to mess that up. They're going to look to mess it up. So no matter what kind of a deal that Trump was going to kind of try to broker, they're going to keep messing that up. So I think he might have said to himself, you know what? If that's the case, why don't we go in here and just finish them off quickly? And I think that may be what they're looking to do. And so I kind of wonder, I think right along with Ali, is that what if they were looking to, again, take key ports, key production facilities, doing these midnight exercises, a midnight raid, and they're able to capture those key points? How hard would it be to transfer weapons to the Iranian people right at those exact points? And then we're rolling, basically. So I think what we've kind of seen is that the U.S. has kind of gone after their proxies and isolated the Islamic regime. And so we've seen what's happening there with Iraq, which is incredible. And then we're seeing what's happening there over in Lebanon with Bradley kind of working over there to kind of, in essence, neutralize or at least minimize Hezbollah over there. And so I think that's what we're kind of seeing they're gearing up to do. And I think President Trump thinks this, that really, and I would contend too, that a free Iran honestly stabilizes your entire Middle East. It really do. I would contend that they are the linchpin. Because if you're going to reestablish democracy back over there in Iran, look what that does. Oh my goodness. You fix so many things. Your issue there with China and wanting to invade Taiwan, forget about that. You're looking at terrorism around the world. Man, this to me is really it. And again, a last thing that I would say is that, don't forget whose idea the Abraham Accords is. That was Donald Trump's. So he saw, Israel as being kind of a stabilizing force there. Well, if you pair Israel, then again, and Iran, a free Iran, you have fixed so many problems all throughout the Middle East. And so I wonder if he is not absolutely kind of rolling the dice here, because simply the Islamic regime is not going to allow him to just kind of skate by until the midterms. This is what I kind of wonder in the back of my own head.
All right, thank you.
Let's
go to Anna.
Just really quickly, I think a lot of what you said is, I really agree with, and I hope like what you're saying about President Trump, those parts I hope is true. One thing with regards to giving the Iranian people guns, it cannot just be dropped. Even in, I do agree that the best place to do it is from southern Iran, but you can't just hand it over to them. Like they do need, the vetting and training are necessary before you give them the guns, because if you just drop the guns there, you're basically arming the IRGC. And I see Jeffrey nodding. When Jeffrey nodding on military stuff, I know I'm getting this right. Every time if Jeffrey is nodding, that's a good confirmation that I'm saying something correctly. Okay, who's next? Sorry, Denny?
Guy's next.
Guy. Oh, Guy. Hey, Guy. We don't have an audio. Do you guys have audio? Or is it just
not
me?
from Guy, I don't.
Okay. No, we missed. By the way, guys, we got 6 super chats. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. Yeah, let me pin him.
Okay. It's not this microphone, but I'll fix it because I literally just set this up. So hey everyone, remember when I said last week that I'm I was sick, and then I'm back full force, and then I disappeared again. I just moved, and that just coincided with like a block of like 2 weeks where I was basically off, unfortunately. Now I'm actually going to be back in a few days once I get everything set up. This is still not the final house, but I'll be here for 2 months, and I have a new base of operations. And in this time, Monkey has surpassed me in the number of subscribers, which is an atrocious crime. So everyone watching, please subscribe to my channel. Don't subscribe to Monkey, even though he makes excellent content, but don't subscribe to him now. Just subscribe to me, because I need to get to 600 before him. So that's the beginning. Now, for what I was going to say, there are a lot of ways. Oh, I think I know why the mic wasn't working. It was for a stupid reason. Let's see if now we can.
Are we gonna get to your topic?
Yes, yes, 1 second. I want to get to my topic with crisp audio.
Is it working now?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's better. Yes.
There you go. See, it was worth it. It was worth a couple seconds.
Okay.
So I'll be really quick because I spent all of my time talking about the other stuff. There's a lot of, like, we can speculate on a lot of things. So I like to use hard data for what could be the intentions. Hegseth was supposed to come to Israel and then canceled the visit. And we can think of a lot of different reasons for why he would do that, except that Netanyahu is flying to America in a week. So whatever it was, it couldn't wait until Netanyahu was flying to America. Now they canceled it. But to me, that suggests that they at least had an initial intention to actually go back to full-on strikes, because I can't think of another reason that it would be this important for Hegseth to come to Israel. Like a few days before Netanyahu was already flying to the US. If you have other interpretations, I'm open to hearing them. But to me, that suggests that at the very least, resuming striking was very, very close. Now, they canceled the trip, but it still tells you it points to a certain mindset that the US has right now.
My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.